When it comes to Japanese street racing games, most people would likely think of Genki, Bandai Namco, or Sega. But there exists a game made by a group of British developers. Everyone's favorite company, Eutechnyx. The same guys who made Street Racing Syndicate, Ride to Hell Retribution, and pretty much every other contract developer job for any publisher. One of those gigs would land them the job of developing a Fast and Furious title, one which would be known as the best Fast and Furious video game adaptation to ever exist. Originally, the title was supposed to be handled by Genki, the guys behind the TXR series, and Universal Interactive as a publisher, but due to problems with the latter, they had to cancel the entire plan. For the time at least, someone at Universal Studios fully understands just how much a racing game based on the Fast and Furious series can sell, considering this was around the peak of street racing culture, especially with video games. Released in the year of 2006, ending up under the developing hands of Eutechnyx and Bandai Namco as their publisher. Knowing how many games Eutechnyx has developed at the time, it actually made a lot of sense. They were probably somewhat cheap, but because they were also very experienced with developing racing games in general. Although the game did receive a lot of mixed opinions attributed to its bizarre and janky handling or simply Eutechnyx magic, it overall positioned this game in this weird place as either a spiritual successor to Street Racing Syndicate, but also some kind of spin-off to the Tokyo Extreme Racer series thanks to its content offering. The game itself doesn't follow the same plot of the movie, mostly featuring similar characters very loosely. There are no character models, probably for a good reason. So most of the returning characters from the franchise simply borrowed the name and car appearance. The player, that being us, plays a mysterious unnamed newcomer to the scene. The first race starts off in a lone NSX, or if you're playing this on a PAL version, a Supra. Just to showcase the sense of speed of the game's highway races, get a load of this dude's energy.
Woo! You did good, baby, you did good! Hey, hold up. Nah, you can't take that with you, that's mine, dog.
And for emulation, it's the perfect place to showcase the visual jank. This is caused by the skip draw effect. Depending on where it's set up, it'll either make everything blurry or destroy your vision via NOS. This is followed by the game's starter card selection featuring your usual JDMs and some western selections, but this game also features a lot of cars never really seen in other racing titles like the Civic, and in some cases pre-tuned vehicles such as the TRD MRS. This is arguably one of the strongest points of the game as they present some of the extremely rare cars we've never really seen before, and some very specific tuned vehicles. And with over 100 cars in the game, there's bound to be some extremely rare unicorns to be found here. Acquiring most of these beauties also requires visiting the relevant showrooms, as well giving that reason to explore the map, but that kinda went out of the window due to fast travel already being available from the get-go. The game itself takes place across the highways of Tokyo from the well-known Wangen area, Yokohama, and up to the area of Yokosuka with some of the Toge tracks outside of free roam. After being done with the starter car selection, the game immediately throws the player into customization. Working in a similar way as SRS, this is intended to immediately give players access and showcase how they can ruin their cars. Disgusting! So while we do have the average options, the game also features official body kits for specific cars such as Veilside and many others for almost every car in the game. Most of the exceptions will either be prototype cars, American cars, and pre-tuned cars. But then there's the out left field options such as the valve stem LED light, giving that sweet neon ring next to the rims every time we go fast, and some drift charms with options courtesy of Bandai Namco trying to sell you both Soul Calibur 3 and Tekken 5, alongside several HUD options featuring completely different sets of information. The decal editor itself is also very much welcome, following along the lines of more customization options now that it's no longer a fixed placement from SRS. This is most likely one of the best car customizations anyone can find back in 2006. The only thing to rival it at the time was, well, Juice 2, with NFS Carbon falling short due to simply rehashing options for Most Wanted. On the other hand, performance upgrades in this game is alright at best, but the biggest sin it commits is by sticking to the level-based performance parts, while also not being directly clear to the player that certain levels aren't as straightforward. For example, transmission stage 3 and 4 are specifically tuned for either top speed or acceleration. The description may tell you about this, but the utilization of stages can be very misleading since most people are gonna assume stage 4 is the best thing generally. Interestingly enough, some of the performance parts will also change cosmetically. At the start, upgrade parts up to stage 4 are unlocked with the final stage locked behind progression, and the game arguably implements engine swaps a bit better than TXR3 did, allowing smaller and slower cars the ability to become unstoppable highway monsters. The game has 3 different types of races. There's the usual highway races and Toge races up on the mountains, both accessible from parking lots where street racing crews hang around, but the ability to challenge random racers on the highway via roll-up races is also available and is included for the 100% of the game. At first glance, it may behave like the SP battles of TXR, but instead of having health bars, the goal is simply to outrun the opponent by 200 meters, making this a lot closer to the free roam races of Underground 2.
Yo, you almost there. You almost there. You did good, baby. What don't you do for money?
Although it's not necessary to reach the credits of the game, main progression ultimately comes down to its parking lot races, challenging any crew currently hanging around in the area until their leader comes out to play. In highway battles, most of the races we can do will be the basic point-to-point races with destination battles, or the self-explanatory top speed battle, with the only obstacle coming from the traffic, with its density usually causing unnecessary detours, and the AI with their scripted speed boosts. So there's no such thing like SP battles in these parking lot races, although it's probably for a good reason. Every time a rival crew is defeated, another will take its place, with a total of 8 to 10 different rivals populating a single parking lot, featuring several well-known names from the franchise. A bunch of well-known real-life racers and tuners, legendary drift racers, including someone who apparently is part of the band providing music for this game. But if that's not enough, Eutechnyx has taken a big footnote on how Genki does their stuff, and as a result, a roster of rivals with interesting profiles and personalities. Some call him a natural racer, but Damian was born to MC. The haters say he talks a lot of noise and has no skills to back it up, but who cares? Talks a lot of smack, has no skill, but who cares, you know? Katsuhiro's driving style is non-existent, and his choices are often questionable. Still, Katsuhiro drives with all his heart, but even so, he still isn't very fast. With 8 total parking lots, that means a total of 80 races awaits the player, which also includes the Toge races, taking place in several canyons and mountain ranges with different sceneries and details to boot, with the earliest having wide enough roads to accommodate newcomers and the later areas having much tighter passages in exchange. The rules are similar here to the highway races, albeit with different race options. The destination battle is technically still here, just as a full-on sprint race from one end to the other, but of course there's the drift battles. Scoring here is done differently than most other racing games. Crashing into walls doesn't negate the accumulated score, but there's also different drift techniques being accounted for, directly affecting the score multiplier. Unfortunately, the detection is very spotty, with the game constantly mistaking feints or scandy flicks with concise drifts. Yet somehow, that's not the biggest problem this game has with drifting. Let's start with the AI. Remember how highway battles become torturous due to AI having scripted speed boosts? The equivalent of that for Toge comes with the AI straight up just cheating with their scores. If the player goes too far from the AI, either by being too fast or too slow, they will gain a sudden jump in points. What the fuck? 5,000 all of a sudden? Is it actually because I'm too far ahead? He's out of the map sometime to cheat. Sneaky little bastards. But then there's the drift handling. At first it feels okay, but for some reason the rear-wheel drive cars in this game are outright unbearable with how much it goes from oversteering to understeering, making front-wheel drive and four-wheel drive cars superior despite also having somewhat of a similar problem. And that's not accounting for the misleading drift tires. Just like the transmissions, for some reason the higher stage drift tires makes the car even more grippy, putting yet another blemish on the performance upgrades. Other weird physics quirks can also happen when reaching maximum top speed. Somehow using nitrous while wiggling increases the car's top speed even further, giving a slight edge with top speed battles. Cars tend to constantly stick to the walls, and when it doesn't, you'll be spinning. Though at least it can be fun from the occasional high-speed crashes that can launch players all over the place. Bearing that problem is worth it though, as most rivals provide a ton of cash, performance upgrades, visual customization pods, and the best one comes from the bosses, providing their respective pink slips. Sadly, you can't really sell their cars for extra funds. It shouldn't be a problem. Money is not that much of an issue with how much anyone would normally gain, and the other reason is thanks to the game's generous selling system, allowing players to regain all the money spent on a car, including the upgrades. Another reward from beating crew leaders are friendship stickers. Not exactly the kind you'd see sticking on diaries or photo frames, but to be specific, it's the crew decals we can install for benefits such as price discounts in specific shops. This is why there's a ton of different tuning shops, despite them not having any form of exclusive upgrade parts. Yet similar to TXR3, this game has a problem for the completionists. Out of the 40 unique roll-up racers players can encounter, one of them will never spawn exclusively for the NTSC copy of the game, making 100% impossible without any way to fix the problem. Regardless, this game somehow is still functioning well enough for a Eutechnyx game and is undeniably superior to SRS. It's got the visuals, the customization options are surprisingly deep, the gameplay is fun, until that final Toge stage, and unfortunately most of the Toge section just falls flat due to the janky physics. I'd still recommend this game, although it comes with a couple of caveats. The first being that this game is very finicky to run on an emulator due to the constant need to change settings just to avoid graphical and frame rate issues. And if you're someone who can and is willing to endure Eutechnyx janks, or what is currently for almost 20 years now, the best Fast and Furious game.